Hello everyone, I'm Sarah of Rich Textures Crochet and welcome. Today we're going to learn how to crochet the children's classic knit look beanie, and this is probably one of the most requested crochet patterns for my channel here at the moment, ever since I released the adult classic knit look beanie. You can also find that video here. I'll link it up in the cards and you'll find it in the crochet hat playlist. But this is the children's classic knit look beanie. It's a wonderfully easy crochet hat to make. I'm going to provide 6 sizes for the hat, starting with the preemie size, which is what you see here, all the way up to child size age 12. It can be worn either without a brim, or you can simply fold it up and give it a cute brim. It also works without a pom-pom, or if you wish, you can add a pom-pom to the top. It's really up to you. For our tutorial today, you're going to need a little bit of a worsted weight yarn. I'm using the Heartland yarn by Lion Brand. There is about, let me see, 250 yards per ball of yarn. To make the largest size hat, so your child size up to age 12, you're only going to need about half, so about 125 to 150 yards of yarn to make your largest size. You're also going to need a 5mm or an H8 crochet hook. This is the Blush Metal Streamline Hook by Furls Crochet. You'll find links to both of these items in the description of this video. Also down there in the description, you'll find a direct link to the free written instructions, which are on my website at richtexturescrochet.com, and there you will find the written instructions for all 6 sizes and, of course, the adult version as well. So let's grab our hooks and yarn and get started. Now today in our video we're going to work the largest size children's crochet hat. So this is for your child size, ages 3 to 10, 3 to 12, with a head measurement or circumference of about 19 inches. These hats, though, they are quite flexible. They're going to stretch quite a bit, so there is a lot of flexibility there in the size. For our child size today, the largest size, you're going to begin by making a slip knot and then work a foundation chain. For the child size hat, you're going to need to chain 44 chains. If you would like to work the preemie size hat, you'll chain 29. For the newborn hat, chain 32. For the 0 to 6 month old hat, chain 35. For the 6 to 12 month old hat, chain 38. And for the toddler hat, chain 41. For the child hat, we will chain 44. Once again, all of these stitch counts are on the free written instructions on richtexturescrochet.com. There's 30, 40, and 44. Once you have worked that foundation chain of 44 stitches, you're going to begin row 1 by working a slip stitch into the second chain from your hook. I'm working into the back bumps of my stitches. So slip stitch into the second chain from your hook and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way across. And this will be the same for all sizes. Slip stitch into that second chain from your hook and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way across. At the end of row 1, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now for row 2, we're going to work in the back loop only. To find the back loop only, looking at the top of your stitch, you have a loop that is closest to you and a loop that is furthest away. Your back loop only is always the loop, regardless of the side that is facing you, it's always the loop that is furthest away. So for this row 2, we're going to be working under this back loop only, and for every row hereafter, under this back loop only. Slip stitch into that first stitch. Your chain 1 does not count as a stitch, and slip stitch into the back loop only of each of the next 40 stitches. So you're going to have a total of 41 slip stitches, and you will have 2 stitches remaining at the end of this row. So slip stitch in the back loop only of that first stitch and in each of the next 40 stitches all the way across. If you are working any of the other sizes of the hat, you're simply going to work along the row again until you have 2 stitches remaining unworked. At the end of row 2, you're going to leave those final 2 stitches left remaining unworked. That's for all sizes. You're going to chain 1 and again turn your work. Now for row 3, we're simply going to work in the back loop only. Your chain 1 does not count as a stitch, so right into that first stitch, you're going to slip stitch in the back loop only of the first stitch and in each stitch all the way across. At the end of this row, you're going to continue to have a total of 41 stitches for that child size. At the end of row 3, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. For row 4, continue working in the back loop only all the way across. You're going to slip stitch into that first stitch and then slip stitch into each of the next 38 stitches. You'll have 2 stitches left remaining. You're going to leave those unworked, and at the end of this row, you're going to have a total of 39 stitches. Once you come all the way across, at the end of row 4, you have 2 stitches left remaining. Again, this is the same in all sizes. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now for row 5, working in the back loop only, you're going to slip stitch into that first stitch and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way across. At the end of row 5, for that child size, you're going to have a total of 39 stitches. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now for row 6, working in the back loop only all the way across, you're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. Your chain 1 does not count as a stitch. And then slip stitch in each stitch all the way across until 2 stitches remain. And you will leave those final 2 stitches left unworked. For the child size, that is a total of 37 stitches. So slip stitch in the back loop only all the way across until 2 stitches remain. At the end of row 6, you have 2 stitches remaining. You're going to leave those remaining stitches unworked, chain 1, turn your work, and for row 7, work in that back loop only, slip stitch into the first stitch, and then into each stitch all the way across. Again, for the child size, at the end of this row, you'll have a total of 37 stitches. For the other sizes, by the end of this row, and again, all of these are written out in more detail on richtexturescrochet.com, but at the end of this row, you'll have a total of 22 for the smallest size, 25 for the newborn size, 28 for the 0 to 6 month size, 31 for the 6 to 12 month, 34 for your toddler size, and then 37 for our child size that we're working here today. At the end of row 7, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Now for row 8, working in the back loop only all the way across, you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch, and then if working the child size, then into each of the next 36 stitches. So you're going to work slip stitches in each stitch all the way across to the end of your row. And you'll adjust your stitch counts depending on what size you are working, but we want to work all the way across to the end of our row before we come to those stitches that we left unworked in the previous rows. So slip stitch in the back loop only all the way across. I'm just going to keep working here. When you come all the way across your row, you're going to continue working up these little steps. Now, the way I know I have enough steps is I just count 3. So you have 3 little steps here. What you're going to do is you're going to jump down into row 5, working in the back loop only, slip stitch in each of those next 2 stitches. You're then going to jump down into row 3, slip stitch in the back loop only of each of those next 2 stitches. Now sometimes I do find these stitches get pulled under a little bit. It helps just to keep them quite loose. You're then going to do one final jump down into row 1 in the back loop only, slip stitch into each of those final 2 stitches. Then chain 1 and turn your work. So you'll see you've really smoothed out those 3 steps. Now for the rest of the pattern, we're simply going to repeat those steps just worked. So for the rest of our hat, for the child size, we're going to repeat rows 1 through to 8 for a total of 12 more times. So your row 1, beginning with the slip stitch in the back loop only of that first stitch, and then slip stitch into each stitch all the way back across. You're then going to chain 1, turn your work, and repeat your row 2. And you're going to do this a total of 12 times. You want to repeat. If you are working the preemie size hat, you are only going to repeat your rows 1 through to 8 for a total of 7 more times. If working the newborn size, you're going to repeat 8 more times. If working the 0 to 6 month size, you will repeat 9 more times. For the 6 to 12 month size, you'll repeat 10 times. For the toddler size, you'll repeat 11 times. And then once again, for this child size, you're going to repeat those above steps for a total of 12 more times. At that point, you can meet me back here. Once you have worked all of your repeats, you're going to have a piece of fabric that looks like this. And we're going to now crochet our 2 sides together. So taking your 2 sides, you're going to lay them over top of one another. And we're going to work a slip stitch seam all the way down the side of our hat. So do not fasten off. You're going to chain 1, turn your hat so that you're working along this length, and you're going to be working in the back loops only of each side through both thicknesses. So working through the back loop only of this first side and the back loop only of the second side, you're going to work a slip stitch. You're going to repeat this all the way across, working slip stitches in each stitch all the way across, making sure that you're not skipping any stitches. You want to work them evenly all the way down to the bottom of your hat. Now, if you're finding when you turn your hat right side out that you have a larger gap than you would like, you can play around a little bit with this. You can work in the front loops only. You can work in the front loop only of one side, back loop only of the other side. It's really up to you. Play around with it until you get the look that you like. And I'm just going to take a moment here to remind you, if you are enjoying this video, please don't forget to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, take a look around. The adult version of this hat is here on this channel, and the channel is updated every single week with free crochet patterns and stitch tutorials. Once you have worked your slip stitch seam all the way across, you can then go ahead and fasten off and then tuck in your end. I'm just going to tuck mine in quickly here. You're then going to cut another length of yarn, and how you prefer to sew the top of your hat closed will determine how long you would like that length of yarn to be, and you're going to thread it onto your yarn needle. You're then going to use this yarn to sew the top of your hat closed. Now I'm just going to tuck in this tail a little bit by weaving it in through the seam up to the top of my hat. Then, just to make sure that the stitch is going to hold, I'm just going to tie a little knot. This is on the inside of my hat, so my seam is still on the outside here. You're then going to sew the top of your hat closed. Now there's a number of ways to do this. You can simply sew across the top. It's really up to you. Sometimes I like to just kind of weave in and out like this through the tops of the stitches and then pull it closed. I think today for this hat, I'm simply going to go in and out through the top of my hat like so. Again, this is all on the inside, so this seam is not going to be seen on the out. Back and forth all the way across. I love the top of this hat because it's not too bulky. And it really has a smooth appearance, as you will see once we turn the hat right side out. Just going to tuck in this tail a little bit. Depending on whether or not you're adding a pom-pom to the top, you may wish to leave this tail attached and use it to attach your pom-pom. It's really up to you. Other than that, you can simply use it to tuck in your end. Turn your hat right side out. And that is your classic children's knit look beanie. Again, it can be worn with the brim down, or you can flip it up if you wish. If you would like, you can also add a pom-pom to the top. And that's all there is to working the children's classic knit look beanie. Thank you so much for joining me. While you're here, I invite you to subscribe. If you happen to make the classic knit look beanie and share it on social media, do be sure to tag Rich Textures Crochet. I always love to come by and admire your work. Until next time, happy crocheting. Bye.